I was told to take a look at the Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury. If I was a sci-fi fan, it was like a rite of passage to read the Martian Chronicles. And so I decided to read the Martian Chronicles. I decided to go through it, to give it a look, give it a good, solid look. And then I looked up some of the controversy, because, this is an old book. Old books obviously will have controversies due to the periods that they were in that people don't like. And I agree that a lot of the stuff that was happening back then was not good. It was not good at all. Segregation, it was not good. It was not good. Saying the hard R N-word is not good. It's not good. But they were period pieces. It was a product of its time. And to hide away from history would doom humanity to repeat it. We must look at the darkness of humanity so that we can learn not to be like them. So that we can learn not to be like that which makes us angry, or that which makes us full of vitriol for these people who are acting like such despicable people. We read about these characters who say such bigoted racial comments and all that stuff, and we go, this person is disgusting. And that's often the point, That's often the point. To look at a character and their terrible way of being a person and realize that that is a terrible person. And fiction often gives us the tool, the mirror, the ability to portray this world and this person and the way that they act and tell a story. Maybe even educate the reader and make them see, hey, this guy is a terrible person. Maybe we should not just immediately get offended that this person exists, but we should realize that they're trying to tell you that this person's a bad person. And critical thinking is a very important skill. It is. It's a very valuable skill. And I think it should be something that should never be lost on humanity, ever. To lose the ability to critical think would be to lose the ability to count 2 plus 2 without the use of a calculator. It's important to be able to count that in your head. It's important to be able to connect things in your head. It's important to retrospect and introspect on things, on concepts, on ideas. It's very important. Now, why am I bringing all that crap up and pointing at a science fiction book with Martians in it? Well, it's because a long time ago this book was written, and it used to include a chapter that was omitted from this version. This version was, I believe it's like a 2010s publication. I have no idea. It's been published after the 90s, and it's been edited. It has been edited. The original version, there's one thing that I would agree with the edit for. The original version's dates for like the Martian star dates and all of that stuff. Ray didn't think too far ahead. Maybe he was a little bit too optimistic, thinking maybe by the 1990s we'll be on Mars. Yeah, right, Ray. Yeah, right. But then again, most people think in science fictionally thought we'd be in hover cars or discover time travel and all that stuff in just a few short decades. They thought we'd be there in just a few short... Well, nope. Sorry, son. It's almost been 100 years and we ain't even close. We ain't even close, Ray. And so one of the edits that one of the editors tried to do is change some of the star dates. Like here, let me try to find an opening chapter piece to show you one of the star dates here. For example, this chapter here, and the moon be still as bright, June 2032. That's one of the star dates. That's one of the dates that were changed. Instead of being some 1980, 1990s date, it was 2030s, because that was a further off date. It's even further off than now. And so we think, so it's still future even for us in the 2020s. So that's fine. That's a small change that I'm okay with. The other change that I'm not okay with is the omittal of a chapter. And I found this chapter. I found this chapter online. I've read most of it. And while I can understand people might be offended that this character exists and this character is being a very terrible person and reacting with such vitriol and disgust at this person, because you should. You definitely should. I 100% agree with you. You should react with vitriol against this person. But just because somebody upsets you, a fictional character upsets you, doesn't mean you wipe the chapter away completely. If you want to censor the word, fine. But I think you should keep that chapter in the book because of the important message it was trying to convey, especially for the time period. You know, this book was written before the Civil Rights Movement. It was trying to make a statement. It was trying to make an observation about the climate that existed at the time and where he thought that might go. Maybe he was being cynical. Maybe he thought we'd never get past our old wounds. Maybe he was being cynical about... There's a lot of cynicism in the Martian Chronicles. Let me just say that right away. There's a lot of cynicism. In fact, the whole book, the ending of the story ends with the civilization of Earth being destroyed because humanity is too stupid and belligerent to work together and unite as a global planet in the future of science fiction. You know, he was very cynical about that. He thought that would never happen. He thought people would never come together and let bygones be bygones and cooperate for the whole collective betterment of the human race to reach out for the stars. You know, he thought that was never going to happen. He thought Earth people were doomed to destroy each other. And that's exactly what happens. The Earth people destroyed each other. The whole society upended itself. And, I can agree with that cynicism. You know, I could say, yeah, I could see where you were coming from, especially for the time period when this book was written. You know, you gotta think about these things. You gotta use that big noggin. That's why it's between your ears. You gotta use it. And I can understand where he was coming from. You know, I followed him. I followed him. And I followed where he was thinking about and what he was talking about in that omitted chapter that everybody was too scared to include in this and thought, oh, it would be upsetting to do, but it wasn't upsetting at all. Okay? The character in person who was racist, he's a terrible person. But hey, racists exist. Shoving them away with a little eraser saying, oh, that guy, does not make them go away. Covering your eyes does not make it go away. Leave it there. Expose yourself to it. Get mad. And realize that's the point. To be mad at it. And realize we should never let things like that happen. Humanity advanced in the very good direction from that cynical point. He's really thought even in the 2030s, we thought even in the 2030s we wouldn't have gotten past our old wounds. But we're a little bit better than Ray thought we were. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. We're better than what Ray thought we would be. We haven't destroyed each other yet. We got about a decade to go here. Let me see here. 2057 is when the entire society of Earth is gone. There's a 20-year world war, and Earth society blows itself up at the end. And I think the war began in the 2030s. I'm trying to find the chapter here. Yeah, by like 2036, 2037-ish, the whole world ended, you know, like the whole world started into war, and you could see the explosion on Earth from Mars, and all of the Martian settlers, the human settlers that tried to go to Mars, they go like, oh my god, what's going on on Earth? We gotta go back. Instead of just saying, oh my god, look, what's going on Earth? Well, I'm glad I'm here, I ain't going back. Only a couple people said that. Only like maybe a handful of people said, oh look, what's going on Earth? I don't care, I'm gonna stay right here. Only Walter Grip, I think his name is, he's the only one who said, hey, you see that crap going on Earth? I ain't cared about that at all. I'm gonna stay right here. I liked that character. This is kind of anthological, but it's like chronologically anthological. Meaning each story is kind of interconnected because it takes place in the same world, in the same timeline. There's this chapter with this one set of characters, leads into the next chapter with a different set of characters. Like the first chapter is about the first Earth expedition. The next chapter is about the second Earth expedition. Like the first Earth expedition had like a handful of people. They come to Mars and they're very excited to be there. They say, "Hey man, look, we're Earthlings. We came from Earth." And all the Martians are like, "So? What do you want a medal?" I love that chapter. I love it. I love that chapter. There's the second Earth expedition is one of the better ones. The first one is just like two guys, and there's this wife of this Martian wife who had psychic visions of these people, and the husband got jealous of the psychic visions, and so he kills both of the human Earthmen, thinking that they would try to steal his wife from him. The second expedition is hilarious, though. The second expedition had about maybe like a handful of 8 to 9 Earthmen, and the second rocket comes to Mars. They're very happy to be here. They're very excited. They try to find as many Martians as they can and say, "Hey man, look at us. We're from Earth. Aren't you happy to see us?" And everybody goes like, "What?" You say, "All right, well, nice rocket. You want a medal for that?" They keep referring the Earthmen to different people. And then finally they reach this doctor. And the doctor throws them into an asylum because he thinks they're crazy. Because everybody on Mars is psychic. They can manifest physical objects using the power of their minds. And they thought that this man was psychic and that he had basically conjured his crew up with his thoughts, conjured the rocket up with his thoughts. And so one day, the doctor humors the Earthman, the astronaut, and he lets the astronaut take him to his rocket. The Martian explores the rocket. He's very fascinated by this. He says, "I'm going to get an award for writing about you. You are one of the greatest cases, but you're absolutely beyond help. I'm sorry, you must die." And so he shoots the Earthman. But then the Earthman's compatriots, who the shrink thought were conjured images of this guy's psychic delusions, did not go away. And he said, "Wow, you must be like After Effects from his spirit. I'd best kill you guys too." And so he kills the rest of the Earthmen, but the rocket doesn't go away. And so he starts to think, "Oh no, he's infected me with his delusions." So he turns his gun on himself. That's hilarious. It is dark comedy. There's a lot of dark comedy, dark commentary in the Martian Chronicles. I 100% recommend you read this book, and I 100% recommend you track down the omitted lost chapter that they ripped out of here for understandable reasons, but I don't think those reasons were warranted enough of a censoring. Maybe you could have two versions of the Martian Chronicles. I would say that the Martian Chronicles, this version that I'm holding, you could have in schools. You know, people could read this one in schools, high schools, or whatever, and that's fine. But then there's the commercial one available to adults who are smart enough, who should be smart enough, who should be responsible enough, who should be critical thinking ability enough to realize that this chapter and this character is a bad character. He's saying bad racist things, and we can understand that this person's a bad person, but we can also understand this is a fictional world, this is a fictional creation, and there's probably a lot of social commentary that Ray Bradbury was trying to do with that chapter that is now lost to us because we can't get to read it because they ripped it out. The chapter doesn't really serve too much of a purpose on the overall grand scheme of things, but again, there's a lot of chapters like that in this book. There are a lot of chapters like that. Each one is a different type of commentary. There's this one social commentary that Ray was trying to make in one of the last chapters of the book, where there's this house on Earth during the World War, and the whole city's been burned except for this one house, and we get to spend the whole chapter in this house. We get to see how the entire house has been automated. Everything from breakfast to cleaning up all of the dirt on the floor. He basically conjured up the concept of a Roomba decades before the Roomba was created. He conjured up all sorts of answering messaging systems and all this stuff. He figured all that stuff out before any of it happened. Obviously, he took a few liberties, Fallout style, for this futuristic, classical look at all of these technologies. But this entire house was automated, completely automated. There was nothing that these humans would have done for themselves. It kind of felt like the Jetsons, kind of social commentary on how they lived their lives. How everything was so automated that George Jetson was so upset that he had to push 3 buttons instead of 2 to get breakfast, and he was very upset about that. It's those types of commentary about the laziness after all these things would be automated, that people become incredibly lazy, that they'd have automations do everything, even bathing them, even all of it. There was a bunch of social commentary and political commentary all throughout this book that I really appreciated reading. I was fascinated by it, and I think this is a fantastic book. Definitely give it a look.